Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. What follows is the first of two parts of a conversation that I had with my friend Travis about the current slate of comic book-based television shows. I hope you enjoy. All right, well, today Travis and I are getting together to chat about comic book TV and probably some movies as well. Travis, would you say that we are living in a veritable golden age of television as it relates to comic books?
Would I call it golden?
Not in the sense of golden age as if what we have is, the pinnacle, the best ever, like the height of what comic book TV could possibly be, but just in the sense of look at how many shows we have to enjoy on television now,
right.
Based on comic book properties. It's amazing.
It is. It's I definitely can remember us in our youth. There was no way that there was even a thought of a possibility of having the level of TV production that's either out right now and seems to be in the works. How much stuff is like right on the cusp of potentially supposedly being shows that is actually pretty mind-boggling when I think about it. It's just like, no, there's no way. But
right.
We are.
Yeah, exactly. So when we were kids, knee-high to a grasshopper, as my grandfather used to say, maybe a little taller than that. Anyway, when we were kids, though, growing up reading comics, thinking about the kinds of entertainment that comic books could become, I think mostly we kind of just expected movies, right? But at the time, there was on television, as I recall, The Incredible Hulk,
Mm-hmm.
and The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm not sure if it was called The Amazing Spider-Man or what. Now I don't remember that. But we had those two shows at least. That was 1978, 79, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is about the time I started reading comics in general.
Mm-hmm.
So we had those shows, and they were not the best quality, I'll say. I remember thinking or watching the Spider-Man show, which I loved back then, but it was basically a guy dressed up in a spider costume with a rope attached to his wrist, and the whole webbing effects that they did on that show were just laughable. They really were.
I remember as a kid, I liked The Incredible Hulk. I thought that was a cool show as a kid. I didn't even think Spider-Man was a cool show though as a kid, though, because I was a hardcore Spider-Man fan at the time, and everything that he did frustrated me to no end. The whole tightrope walk across, his big thick spider web and him almost falling all the time. That just always infuriated me as a kid. It's like, come on, he's Spider-Man. He could walk that on two fingers. Go on. But yeah, high quality television.
And with the Hulk, which I do agree. I think the Hulk was a better TV show in general, but I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Bill Bixby was involved in it. He was a pretty good actor.
Mm-hmm.
But the effects with Lou Ferrigno's green painted skin and all that stuff, that was it's probably a good thing that they didn't play that up as much as they could have in the show. Of course, I didn't watch the show later on, so I they may have changed things. I remember watching it for at least the first few seasons, and then I watched the really bad TV movie specials they did. I'm thinking of when Daredevil showed up, and Thor. Those just weren't that good.
Yeah.
And let's not forget. Talking about the golden age, the pinnacle of comic book TV, Travis, the Captain America movies.
Oh.
Oh, yes. Fun
Good
times. But anyway, that's the past. What we have today, however, are a bunch of new, relatively new shows. So I think we're going to talk today about, looking at my notes here, in no particular order, Flash, the new Flash TV series, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I know that you're not a big fan of that, Gotham, Arrow, Constantine, which, Travis, I have to really fight when I say that because I'm so used to saying Constantine.
Yeah.
which is how it's supposed to be pronounced
Now, see,
according to the writers, the English writers.
well, that's interesting because I know there are English people who say that it's Constantine too.
Oh,
So,
really? Oh,
yeah,
really? See, I've
yeah,
heard Alan Moore talk about how it's supposed to be Constantine,
Alan
and some of
Moore,
the others.
whatever.
I know, I know. Anyway, but on the show, I mean, the show actually says Constantine, so
Right.
we'll do it. Plus, just easier to say, I think, than Constantine. Rolls off the tongue better.
Mm.
Is that it? I think that's it as far as the TV shows, and then
Walking Dead, if you want to throw
oh,
it in there.
that's true. Oh well, yeah, I do have a list of other shows here that I wanted to mention. But yeah, Walking Dead is the big one, right? One of the big ones. I actually don't watch that show.
I don't, I don't anymore, to be honest. I mean, I used to. I got a little fatigued with it, but
Yes,
I hear,
exactly.
but I hear everybody talk about this season's like, they changed it all up and it's all exciting again or whatever. But
Yeah, well, I read the book, and I know, the TV show is an adaptation of some of the stories in the comic.
sure.
So I believe because my daughter and her fiance are they don't have cable or satellite, so they are coming. They've asked me to record The Walking Dead every Sunday for them because he's a big fan.
Mhm.
And so they come over now on Sundays, and as we record this, they'll be coming over tonight to watch the last 2 or 3 weeks worth of episodes.
Mhm.
So I've been seeing a few bits of them in the last few weeks. So I know where they're at in the show is a past point that I'm aware of where I've read in the comic because I read the trades.
Mhm.
I don't read the monthly comics, so I read the trades. I'm up to volume 19 of the trades. I don't know what those issues are. I think it's past 100. I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
Maybe even several issues past 100. Anyway, they're not quite up to where I am at in the comic based on the TV show. But then again, I could be. I don't know what they've done on the show as far as mixing up the timeline of certain stories. So maybe they have done stuff that is later. I don't know.
Well,
I have no
yeah,
idea.
and there's stuff that's different because they completely changed some of the stuff. I mean, it's not mirroring the comic directly anyway. So
Right, 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 right. Or is there anything else we want to talk about The Walking Dead since neither of us watched the show? Other than it's huge. I mean, it seems to be a
well,
big phenomenon with more than just comic book fans.
right. And can we say that basically, where would we be at with the other TV shows if it wasn't as big as it is?
Do you think that the success of The Walking Dead has something to do with all the slate of other TV shows that we will talk about
I
in
think
terms
so.
of them getting greenlit?
I mean, I think so. I mean, look, it was clearly a comic book for a very long time before it was ever a TV show, and it certainly seems to be an extremely popular TV show. Um, with a big audience and getting a bigger audience, it seems, and it's captured a whole audience that clearly has nothing to do with the comic books, but there's a bleed over there of people. Certainly, I've gone to cons and have people staying in the same lines as me that aren't comic book people, but they're buying comic book merchandise because of the show. So I think so. I think it has to have a factor in there somewhere. I don't know. I mean, not to say that there still wouldn't be a push to some degree because obviously there's the movies are huge. The superhero movies are huge and stuff. But I think it has to have a factor in how successful it is. So let's try stuff on the small screen too, and make it somewhat serious as opposed to, Batman 66. You know,
Which is coming to DVD soon for fans of that show.
yeah.
I mean, that was a big deal when they announced. I think that was San Diego Comic Con when they announced that. I think
Hmm.
might have been New York. I don't remember now. But there was a pent up desire, shall we say, for the Batman '66 TV show DVD series. So
Hmm. Hmm.
coming out on DVD, I should say. Anyway, yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say about Walking Dead other than so I did watch the very first season, and I watched the first episode of the second season, and then we kind of stopped only because my wife got involved in the show, wanting to watch the show, and getting us together at the same time to watch something is extremely difficult. I don't know how it is with your family, Travis, but we can't seem to find time to set aside to watch shows together for the most part. So we got way behind on it, and now we're at what season are we at now on The Walking
Four,
Dead?
four,
Fourth, something like that. So
third or fourth.
so yeah, we're way behind. But I know my wife wants to continue to watch the show, so she's going to restart the show based on the stuff that I've seen from the episodes that my daughter and her fiance have been watching. I, you know, I guess I don't want to watch people being horrible to each other
But
on TV.
you're okay with reading it. Because clearly that's what's in the book too.
Well, okay, I'll be quite honest. I ordered volumes 20 and 21, I believe, and I got volume 20 in my last comic book order. That may be my last Walking Dead comics that I read because I'm, like you mentioned before, the fatigue of the show. That's setting in with me at the comics. Not that the comic isn't a well-produced comic. The story is still great. The characters are awesome. It's just there's only so much, like I said, humanity being horrible to itself that I can take.
Mm.
And so I see that, and it's even more visceral on the TV show. And I don't know. I call me old-fashioned, but I prefer something a little more optimistic, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know why I quit watching it. I just did.
Well, okay. So speaking of optimistic, let's start out with The Flash because I think of that show as pretty upbeat, pretty light as opposed to dark,
Hmm.
and it's to me it's a lot of fun. So what do you think of the new Flash TV series on the CW?
I like it for that reason. It's really fluffy. I don't see it as having a lot of real content. And when serious stuff happens, I have a hard time taking it really serious. As far as the emotional content of it. But as far as being a superhero type TV show, I do think it's fun. I mean, just it has a very upbeat, high energy. The actor who's playing the Flash is a charming person. He comes
Hmm.
across as very charming. I'm not a big Flash fan as far as reading a lot of the books and whatnot, so I have no idea if his portrayal even remotely mirrors any version of Barry Allen whatsoever. I have no idea, but I like him. I like the cast of characters that are around him and stuff. There's some either interesting or absurd plot lines. I mean, with the whole guy that's in charge of the science stuff and what he's up to. Not to spoil anything, but clearly he's something other than what he seems. I was bothered when the show first started out because, of course, the first episode it seems that they kill off the weather wizard. I mean, they kill him,
Hmm.
and I'm like thinking, oh great, every show they're going to kill a villain. How long is it going to be before there's no villains left? Plus, they kill somebody like right out of his own rogues gallery. And then they introduce, like in other shows, they have the Mist, which is a Firestorm, villain. To me, I mean, at least that's what I mean, I don't know. Is the Mist a
Originally,
recurring?
originally a Golden Age Flash, if I remember correctly,
Really?
villain.
Oh, okay. So I only know him from the from Firestorm. It's like, oh, well, that's a Firestorm villain kind of thing. And of course, there is a character in the show that is half of potentially Firestorm that was in the show to start out with. So I don't know if that's going to become a thing. And I don't
I
know.
think so. I think I remember reading that. Well, okay, the
I
producer or
know
the yeah. Go ahead.
I know that they've supposedly cast Professor Stein, which is the other half of
Right,
Firestorm. So,
right.
but I don't
And
know.
the producer is a big Firestorm fan, I guess, or one of the producers or the head writer. I don't know. One big wig involved with the show really loves Firestorm. So and Caitlin Snow, the one
Is the
the
current
the physician.
is the current
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, well, her fiance was named Ronnie, right?
Right. Which is the other half of Firestorm,
Right.
which is the
So
body half of Firestorm. Yeah.
yeah, so Firestorm's going to come to Flash. That's going to be awesome, right?
If it happens, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Firestorm fan. I'd be thrilled with that. Curious to see how they pull all the special effects that they could go
Oh
on there,
yeah.
and kind of what version of Firestorm do they lay out for us? You know,
Right. Right.
because there's some different tones that Firestorm has had over the years as to what that would be like. The other thing I'm one of the things I am struggling with the show is versus the Arrow show. And in the Arrow show, they took all these names that if you know the DC universe, you know all these names, and they just kind of threw them out there, attached them to whatever. They don't match up to what the comic book is. They just use these names in different ways. So now we've got this other newer CW show, which it's 3 episodes in, 3 or 4 episodes in the Flash.
Four, I think. Yeah, I've watched four at least.
Right, so it's 4 episodes in. And there's all these names they're throwing out that are DC names, and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to take them. Do I just take them at face value? It just happens to be that the lead female scientist is named after the current Killer Frost. Is she
Right.
going to become Killer Frost, or are they just using that name because that name's there, it's available, kind of a thing? So I'm kind of like, are they giving me hints as a big DC fan, or do I take it like the Arrow and just kind of don't worry about what the name is because the name may not mean anything at all in comparison to what's going on? Because that's kind of how I was with the whole Ronnie thing until I had heard that they had supposedly cast somebody to be the other half of Firestorm. And I'm like, okay, well, if they've cast the other half, of course they may still never use them. They may just be using those names. I have no idea.
Well,
That's the,
and yeah, exactly. But we're 4 episodes into a new, the first season of a new TV show.
Mhm.
They want to go at least 5 years, 7 years, whatever, or if they're trying to follow the Smallville model, 10 years. So yeah, there's a lot of time and a lot of room for growth in this TV universe that they've set up through, starting with Arrow.
Mhm.
Well, is it? Because this Arrow, it has nothing to do with the Arrow that showed up in Smallville, right?
Smallville has nothing to do with this show whatsoever.
Okay, but I mean, but well, behind the scenes though, that's not true because they had the Arrow character in Smallville, and he was pretty popular, and then they I think that the network decided to develop a TV show on that, a version of that character, which is why we got Arrow in the first place, right?
Hmm.
That's kind
I
of
don't know.
okay.
I don't
That's kind of how I saw it anyway.
know.
I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't know. That I don't know. But clearly, the Flash, they've spun the Flash out of, they put that character in some of the Arrow shows to spin him out into its own show, which to me was
Right.
very smart. It's clearly the same audience as watching both shows, with the exception of you. So, to me, it just makes sense. If they were ever to do another CW version of another superhero show, it would be crazy for them not to plant them in one of these two shows and somehow have it spin out of that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what I was thinking about the Firestorm character. How much you want to bet that probably not this season. I wouldn't think they'd do it this season, but or they could introduce the characters and then 2 or 3 years down the road, then spin Firestorm, the TV series, out of the Flash.
Cool.
Pretty
I'd
soon
watch it.
CW is going to be pretty soon CW is going to end up with all week long comic book programming.
I
Travis
can
goes,
I can watch a superhero show every week, even the stinky ones, I guess. So
yeah. So yeah, you mentioned the Dr. Caitlin Snow. So she, her name is the name of Killer Frost. We also have Cisco Ramon, who is Vibe.
hmm
What do you think of Cisco and his penchant for coming up with the superhero or supervillain names?
I love that. I love that because it's one of the things. Is like, okay, how do in a world without superheroes or superheroes are just starting out? Yeah, how do these names come about? I mean, Is it
Hmm.
really does really every villain just suddenly decide I'm going to come up with some kooky name and call myself something, or or is it the newspapers that start naming them the Blur or whatever, and that whole that whole thing. I don't know. I like that. It's a good to me. That's a cool way to put them, put these names out there because we're not always seeing like, well, in most of these cases, we're not seeing any real character development in these characters as far as them. We're seeing them grow into whatever villain or hero they're going to be, and them come up with their own name or whatever. So, I mean, well, 4 issues in, we finally get what seems to be potentially a reoccurring character, a reoccurring villain in the
Right.
show. In the case of Captain Cold, which I like this version of Captain Cold. I thought he was pretty cool.
So okay, let's talk about him for a second.
Okay.
I want to get back to some of these other characters as well, but yeah. So we start off with, like you said, they kill the weather wizard off. Although I guess the prevailing theory is that the other guy in the plane with him will end up becoming the new weather wizard, recurring weather wizard, if they decide to bring the weather wizard back. Which,
Okay.
why would they not, considering that the weather, God, weather? Why do I
Yeah,
keep
it's hard
saying
to
that?
say. It's hard to say.
So I'm gonna mesh the two words together and just call him the wizard.
The
No, I'm
wizard.
not. No. The weather wizard is such a huge Flash villain. So I mean, they I would think that they would want to bring him back. Who was the second one? Was it the Mist that was the second one?
Yeah, it was the Mist, and then
Oh,
the third
Multiplex.
Multiplex.
That's
Is it
who's.
Multiplex?
Go ahead.
Are you gonna tell me Multiplex is a Flash villain too, and not a Firestorm villain?
That I don't remember, but
Okay.
where I was going with that was, so they kill off Weather Wizard, they kill off Multiplex theoretically, and
Right.
then the Mist is the first one that they capture when they convert the Collider,
Yeah.
right,
Yep.
into a
A
prison,
super
a
prison.
metahuman prison, yeah. And so now, yeah, so now we have that component of the show, which I'm glad. See, that's the thing I hated about the Batman movies was, beginning
Everybody dies.
with yeah, right, with oh God, what's his name? Who was the director of the 1989 Batman film? Why can't I
Burton.
think of it? Burton. Right. So beginning with the Burton films and continuing on, through the latest Nolan films, the villains get killed off, and
Yeah.
and you rob yourself of the storytelling potential of some of these characters, recurring over time. Now I get it with movies, they you get 2 hours plus if it's a Nolan film. His new Interstellar film is almost 3 hours long, and I really want to see that, but it's like, holy God, that's a long time to sit in a theater. Anyway, so you can't, you really don't have the real estate, if you don't mind my mixing these metaphors up, in the movies to afford bringing back these characters in a way that is forwards the character development or forwards the story. But in TV, you have that time, you have those episodes, you have those hours to build and to have these characters recur, and ratchet up the dramatic tension between the hero and the villain. So I was glad to see that they're doing that, and that was one of the things that I didn't like about Arrow, was that not I'm not talking about supervillains in particular, because I don't really know that much about that aspect of Arrow,
Mhm.
but one of the things I did not like about the show, when because I watched the first four
First season.
episodes
Mhm.
of the first season, he kills everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a murderer.
Right. First
Right?
season he whacks them and stacks them. Man, he
Wax and stacks. That's good.
basically. I mean, he's just he's got a big pile stuck in the corner of bodies of people he's mowed down, without a doubt. But
Now,
it's
I hear that's changed.
it's part of, in the case of Arrow, it's part of a long-term. They've got a 5-year plan, a 5-year plan of development of the character and where they think he's going to go. And the first year, that's what they wanted. They wanted him, full of vengeance, full of hate. He's going to fix the problem permanently, and that's his version of fixing the problem permanently. They end the show in dramatic fashion, and with the first season, and they come back with the second season with him, having done a considerable amount of soul searching with what happened at the end of the first season, and he's changed his attitude about that to almost to a detriment. I mean, now they've actually got shows where he's got some of his best friends around him saying, "Why are you letting these people live? This is nuts. You should be putting these people down," and he refuses to, to sometimes to his own detriment. He is not
Hmm.
willing to kill people anymore. That is not what he does.
Okay. Well, hey, let's come back to that.
Okay.
That sounds really interesting. Okay. Kind of makes me want to watch the show. Let's see. What else do we want to say about? Oh, and okay. So then, oh yeah. Let's. What started this off? I wanted to talk about Captain Cold.
Uh-huh.
So now, yeah, now we have a character that not only isn't derived from the collider accident or whatever it is, yeah, but he actually has a cold gun.
Mm-hmm.
Although I thought, Travis, the fact that he goes to the weapons dealer and gets that cold gun and then whacks the guy.
Yeah.
Whacks and stacks him. I like that phrase now. But anyway, so he whacks the guy. I mean, he takes everything, but what happens when he has to fix it? Because he's not the originator of the cold gun, which Leonard Snart, I believe in the comics, originally did create the cold gun. Is that right?
Yeah. And certainly in the New 52 he has. The character in the New 52 certainly created his own cold gun.
Right.
He lost his powers, and then created the gun to replace his powers.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Other than he'll kidnap what's his face and make him fix the gun because he's the guy that made the gun. Future.
Oh my God! You just spoiled the future plot.
I'm sorry. My second job as a CW writer has just been blown. I'm also the person responsible for the dramatic piano music anytime anything seriously emotional happens for the show. That's me.
So what? But in general, what do you think of the portrayal of this Captain Cold?
I liked him. I mean, he's methodical. He's business. It's I don't know. I thought it worked. I thought it worked for what the show is. I thought that he doesn't strike me as crazy. Obviously, cold and calculated and whatnot. I like how because he doesn't really have powers, and I've always kind of wondered. I always kind of thought that Stark maybe did because how fast he can draw and shoot to tag the Flash in the comic. I always kind of wondered if he technically was powered in some sense, but I don't know. I liked it. I mean, I thought he was the most interesting villain to date, then from the show. They conveniently gave him. He ended up working out, having the parka, and I don't know. So that was kind of cool.
Well, he's the only villain so far that we've seen that isn't one-dimensional. Let's see, Multiplex and the Mist. They both their motive was revenge or some wanting to kill someone for a wrong thrust upon them by this person.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the first one? Weather Wizard. Yeah, he was just a guy causing chaos and robbing banks. So yeah, the Captain Cold that we see potentially has a bit more of a character to develop.
Well, they've already given him more background. I mean, because clearly the detective guy, I'm drawing a blank on his name, Iris's dad. He has some sort of history knowledge of the guy, of his behavior, of how he does stuff.
Well, because he's a I mean, he's committed crimes in Central City already, so he's known to the police. Right.
So they already gave him more background than the other characters and whatnot.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the police in this, and then there's one more or a couple more characters too I want to talk about. So you have Detective West, who is the father figure is what I want to say for Flash or for Barry, because he's not technically called the Flash, although they've hinted at it. It's coming. I think in the next broadcast episode.
He refers to himself as the Flash.
Well, did he, or he almost did?
I thought they were like in the lobby of the police station, and somebody else was referring to the Blur, and he said, "No, I was thinking the Flash."
Well, yes, that's true. You're exactly right. It was in the police station. He was talking to Detective West, but he started to say Flash, and he didn't quite say it all the way because he was interrupted for something in the background. But yeah. But so obviously that's coming, which is good because I'm getting sick of. I mean, I think they started calling him the Streak at first, and then the Blurs come up, which is that's all fine. I like the aspect that they're the public is trying to come up with a name for this guy. But I'm anxious for him to just, for everybody to know him as the Flash, which is curious because the show is called The Flash, and the main character isn't referred to by his name by other characters, so which is interesting. So you have Detective West, who's, like I said, the father figure of Barry, because and how cool is this that we get John Wesley Shipp, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who played the original Flash in the 1989-1990 TV series, playing Barry's actual father in the show, who's in prison right now. It's a nice little homage to what came before. But you have Detective West, who basically raised Barry, along with daughter Iris. And okay, can we talk just briefly about this? How weird is this crush that Barry has on Iris, considering that they grew up together, that they're basically brother and sister, and yet he has this immense crush on her? That's just ew.
You think?
That doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's not like they grew up as infants. I mean, they have some semblance of, he has his family, she has her family. Yeah, he's raised there, but I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
It just seems really weird to me.
It doesn't bother me. So
Barry Allen and Iris West are supposed to be, the couple from the comics, Silver Age on. I don't care if they don't put them together in the show. I kind of hope they don't because of that. That whole sisterly thing. It's just, I mean, because Iris thinks of him as her brother. I mean, she's talked about it on the show a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just weird. But speaking of relationships in the show, which I thought this happened rather soon in the development of the show. But then again, it's a new show, so it could have been canceled any time. Of course, we now know that it's been picked up for a full season. But at least, in 4 episodes, Iris went from having no romantic entanglements at all to having into having a boyfriend who happens to be Detective West's partner, his name is his last name's Thawne. I don't remember what they call what his first name is. So Thawne in the comics is the Reverse Flash, right?
I think so.
Because I get confused on this because, like you, I'm not a big Flash reader. I never was. So I know. So we have Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. That's the character I know. But I also, I think his name was Eobard Thawne. I want to say.
Okay.
I also know that in later years they came out with a new character called Hunter Zolomon, who I think is referred to as just Zoom. And that's, so you have the Reverse Flash. So does that mean that Detective Thawne eventually becomes an enemy of Barry's? And considering that in the Bronze Age, or later, it probably was later, the Reverse Flash ends up killing Iris West, or supposedly killing Iris West. From Barry's perspective, she's dead. She, of course, went to the 30th century. Anyway, that's a whole convoluted story we don't need to get into.
The guarantee will not be in this show.
Yeah, but the Reverse Flash is responsible for Iris's death, and he is an enemy of the Flash. So I can see that whole situation happening. Something happens to Iris or whatever, and Thawne goes, nuts, or I don't know. Anyway, something happens to him, and he becomes the Reverse Flash. However, we have, Travis is shaking his head. We have the added element of Dr. Harrison Wells, played by Tom Cavanaugh, which
the Reverse Flash.
Yeah, right. So given what we know about Professor Wells and his apparent knowledge of the future, because we have that huge revelation at the end of the first episode where he not only gets up out of his wheelchair, so he's not the
his secret room.
He goes into his secret room. So he's lying to everybody about his condition, gets up, walks into the secret room, and we see this, I don't know if it was a newspaper or...
Newspaper headline from the future.
Yeah. Basically talking about the Flash dying. Was it dying or Oh, I remember now. I should have looked
Yeah,
this up.
I don't remember what it was.
There's a reference to the Crisis. I mean, they talked about the red skies. I think it was Flash dies in the Crisis. It's something along those lines. But
Hmm.
you had that huge. But anyway, so yeah, is Wells the Reverse Flash or is he Zoom? Because Wells is always talking about. I mean, he's talking about to Barry's friend like Detective West when Wells killed um, God the one guy that
The,
Multiplex was after.
right, the corporate scientist guy. Yeah.
But he's the guy that is involved with Metamorpho. God, I can't
Hmm.
remember his name, that character's name. Anyway, when he kills him, he talks about protecting Barry. And so Wells to me, he looks more to me like he is the Zoom character because he's trying to make Barry become the hero that he needs to be. And that's a huge thing, a huge part of who Zoom is in the comics that I read. So I read like Flash Rebirth. I'm pretty sure that was Hunter Zolomon in that one. I could be totally wrong. Maybe it is the Reverse Flash. Maybe it's Thawne. I don't remember now.
Well, see that for me, this is what gets into the I'm not sure what they're throwing out name wise and stuff. What's just mining names from the DC universe and those characters versus how do they actually attach to the reality of who the characters are. It's kind of a landmine of because I don't think the detective whatsoever is going to be the Reverse Flash. I just don't see that. I don't see that. I still think that this other scientist guy is the Reverse Flash. I think he's the guy that basically pulped Mom at the beginning of the show.
Who?
That's
Which
my
one?
that's my theory.
Wells?
Yes,
Yeah. I think so too.
but you think that's Zoom and not the Reverse Flash?
Maybe there's no difference in this universe. I know that there are two characters who are basically the Reverse Flash in the comics, and so I'm trying to figure out. And they both have different motivations.
Right.
Like I said, Hunter Zolomon, I think, is the guy who is trying to motivate Barry to become a better hero by going off and killing all these other people, or
Mm.
or just murdering people to get Barry to do something. So I don't know. Either way, I'd be interested to see. I think like you, what's going on with this.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things. Trying to figure out exactly what that's going to end up being like. So.
Okay. Let's see. I think is that it? Is that all we want to say about the Flash? We talked a long time about the Flash, but it's the new thing. It's the new one of the new
Right.
TV shows, so
Right.
it deserves a bit of attention. And we've had, like I said, we've had 4 episodes out that I've seen. I really enjoyed the show. I like you mentioned the actor that plays Flash. His name is Grant Gustin, I think.
Hmm.
Anyway, I think he's really good. I think the cast in general is okay for the most part. I just really like the tone of it. After coming off of Arrow, that first season of Arrow, and it was just the melodrama was I mean it was so thick that I could barely watch it.
Oh, but
Um,
it's the same with it's the same with the Flash. It's just a different tone, but it's the same sort of
no,
thing. Oh,
no,
come on.
no,
Every
no.
damn show, every damn show. Oh, you're not my dad, but you are my dad. Weep, weep,
Okay,
weep. Oh, my dead parents. Oh, my dad's in prison. Weep, weep, weep. Oh, I'm pining for Iris, but I can't have Iris. Weep, weep, weep. It's the same stuff. It's
you're
just a
right.
different tone of delivery. But it's the
You're right.
same CW stuff. It's the one complaint I have about both shows is it being on the CW, it's going to have a certain tone, and they both have it. They both have this, God, dye your hair black, put white face paint on, dark eyeliner, and just be emo. Let's just get it over with, to the full extent. I mean, it's just because they're both that. I mean, and you just have to kind of accept. That's why I was joking earlier about the piano music. You
Uh,
start to hear the tinkle of piano music, and it's going to be some kind of quasi weepy moment. Getting off of comic book shows, the Supernatural that's been running for 10 years does the same thing. It's the exact same formula in the CW. All three shows, they're completely the same. They have the same. You could almost guarantee exactly where the points of the kind of melodramatic stuff is going to happen in every single show. So,
you're
you
right.
know,
You're right. You're right. There is melodrama in
if,
here,
if I
but it's
wanted
just
to point, if I wanted to point at them as being quality television, neither one of them are, as far as
No.
being, oh boy. But as far as The Flash being a fun superhero show that you just watch it and you kind of enjoy it, you laugh and you smile through it, regardless of the drama that's there. It certainly is. For me, it is anyway. It's definitely a bright, shiny. Everything about it is shiny. It's always almost always in the daylight. It's well lit, which is completely opposite of the Arrow for sure.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
Arrow falls into more Batman category as far as it's always darkly lit and dreary. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I agree with you. I guess I respond better to the light-heartedness or the lighter quality of the Flash as opposed to Arrow.
Mm,
My limited exposure to Arrow.
right.
uh, so let's talk about Arrow then. Well, I guess let's let you talk about Arrow then. Like I said, I only watched a few episodes of the first season. I have been keeping up on it. There's a podcast I listen to, the Pizza Party podcast. It's a spin-off of the Fight for Comics podcast that these guys out of Utah do. And they've been talking about Arrow since day one. And I would normally kind of skip over any talk about any TV shows that they do, but I've just decided that I don't care that much anymore about being spoiled so much about TV shows because it's really difficult.
There's too much multimedia out there talking
Yeah,
about it.
unless I just divorce myself from Twitter in the evenings, it's basically hard to not be spoiled. Yeah. So anyway, so I listen to this podcast with these guys, which I enjoy this podcast a lot. So I feel like I have kept up with Arrow, even though I haven't watched an episode since the first season.
So how biased are these guys? Because that
No, they love the show. They absolutely love it. They think it's one of the best shows on TV. If you're a comic book fan.
okay, I don't know that I would. I don't know if I'd say that.
I know. I doubt they think it's like I'm trying to think of a good quality show that I've watched recently.
Well, sure. I understand what you're saying. So I enjoyed Arrow. I mean, certainly the first season of Arrow, the first show, I was WTF as Ollie is snapping people's necks in the first like 10 minutes of the show. He's literally breaking people's necks, getting a hold of them and killing them dead. And I'm thinking, there's no way that this can be, Oliver Queen and it just so far out there and whatnot. And certainly the first season, he puts arrows through people like nobody's business. Like I said, dramatic stuff happens, and then we get into the second season where he's decided that he needs to be a better person than that, he needs to be a better hero, that's not the answer. Bring people to justice is what he does. Gathers as much information as he can and captures them and basically turns them over to the police. Second season, of course, has lots of drama in it too because you have all the Deathstroke stuff happening, which I actually really enjoyed. I like the Deathstroke stuff. Yeah, there's some over-the-top angsty, drama there because there's a dead girl between the Arrow and Deathstroke, so that creates all that extra stuff that that is in a CW show. And the third season, now we're in the third season, it's moved even more into being the superhero, I think, standard superhero show. He continues to fight with the drawn line as to the fact he's not going to kill people. The current plot that's going on, some of his best friends have been killed, and other people within his party want him to, put people down that they think are bad guys, and he refuses to do that. To the degree that he actually has told the League of Assassins that as long as this guy, Merlin, is in town, he's actually protecting this guy that at one point he wanted to kill. I mean, he thought he killed him at one point, but now he's basically told the League of Assassins, as long as he's in Starling City, I'm going to defend him. I'll fight you guys, which is crazy because, of course, the League of Assassins we know are over the top as far as how brutal they are and whatnot.
So let me ask you a couple questions. So the League of Assassins, do they have? So I've heard that Ra's al Ghul or will make an appearance.
Last episode, he is at the very end.
So is he associated with the League of Shadow or League of Assassins?
He is. Okay. He is the dragon. He is the head of it. His daughter. He has a daughter. Talia, and yeah, and she is in the TV show the original. And I say original because I'm assuming there's going to be a new Black Canary, where there's a character moving towards being Black Canary. She
Right.
is she is the lover of the original Black Canary, who is not around anymore. Spoiler, sorry.
Wait,
But
wait, 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 wait. Back up, back up.
mhm.
Who's the lover of the original Black Canary?
Ra's al Ghul's daughter. They are a couple.
So I'm sorry. Who's the couple? I still missed that.
So not Diana Lance, Laurel Lance, Laurel Lance, Laurel? No, it's Diana. I don't remember which Lance it is. I get the two. I get their names mixed up because it's one of those things. It's
Are
one
they
of those things.
they're sisters,
Yes,
right?
they're sisters, and Oliver has had relations with both of them.
Wait, wait. So yeah, I remember this from the first season. So one of the sisters supposedly died in the boating accident that
And
he was
that's
involved in.
right. And she's the original Black Canary. She didn't
Okay.
die either. She's around. She shows up again in season 2 and is around a lot in season 2. In his past, and they do all the flashback stuff,
Hmm.
and current time. She ends up at some point in her life being picked up by the League of Assassins, and they train her. And she's the Black
Ah,
Canary. She goes by the Black Canary, or the Canary is what I think is what she goes by. And that's where her training comes
because
with
we
the
have no
Assassins.
room for colors in the Arrow universe.
Clearly, clearly.
Go on.
So
I'm sorry.
yeah, so yes, her and Talia have a relationship. I mean,
Oh, okay. I,
they are a
okay.
couple.
I
They
wasn't
are
sure
a
if you were
couple.
talking about Ra's al Ghul and
No, 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 no,
Black Canary having the
no,
relationship. Okay.
no. Actually, Ra's al Ghul hates Black Canary.
Oh,
He refers to
because
at the end of the last episode, he basically he goes, that's fine that she's dead because she was never really one of us anyway. I mean, and there's some suspect that it has been implied that Ra's al Ghul actually had her killed because she gets killed by a bunch of arrows. She gets pincushioned by a bunch of arrows. And so it's a
right.
debate. Is it Merlin that did it? Is it, Ra's al Ghul that did it? Was it Oliver that did it? And there are commercials have been out. Is it Roy that did it? So who knows? That's going to be that's the running seems to be the running plot this season is who killed Sarah? It's Sarah. Yeah, it's Sarah. Who killed Sarah is the running plot through this season. I mean, while other stuff is happening, that's kind of where they're going as they're trying to figure out. They're trying to be detectives and trying to figure out what's going on. Also, this season they introduced Ray Palmer, who is an absolute douchebag. I can't stand him.
And
That's
he's being played by
Superman.
the guy from the Superman films, right? Brandon
Yeah,
Routh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which he does a fine job, but I mean, this Ray Palmer is really rich. He's taking over Sterling City. He wants to rename it Star City.
Oh, good. They're actually getting back to that.
Yeah, yeah. He wants to
Good.
rename it. He wants to rename it. He's bought out Queen Consolidated. He owns Queen Consolidated. He, is there in Queen Tower. He's taken their tech. He's improved on it because he's so much better. He continuously pursues Felicity Smoke because she's like this cyber, this computer genius to work for. So she's now working for him, but also doing the stuff with the Arrow stuff. Well, she has to have a
Wow.
job. She has to have a job. She has to pay her bills because Oliver doesn't have any money. Um,
Oh, so
so
they stripped him of all his money.
yeah, yeah. He tried getting his company back, and Palmer basically outbid him and out schmoozed the board holders, and so he's now in control of all of that. But I don't know. I don't care for the character. I just kind of punch him. Uh, whether or not we'll ever see him as the Atom, I have no idea.
Well, now, okay, I'm glad you mentioned that because I read something just recently where Routh apparently supposedly said that he would be donning some sort of Atom costume. What that
Cool.
really means, I don't know.
I mean, cool. I like the Atom. I mean, I like the superhero, the Atom. I just don't know if I like this guy. This guy has the potential to be. I mean, he's a nice guy. He comes across as a nice guy, but at the same time, he knows he's a real big genius and just kind of too full of himself. And it's just the type of person he is makes me want to slap him. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know that that's really, you know, a fault of the character or whatever. That's just my personal take on the dude. But it's a fun show. They've had They've had the Flash show up a little bit, briefly. Was it in that show? Just the whole, to continue to spurn the whole let's be superheroes kind of thing. But and Felicity obviously has been in the Flash show also.
Yeah, okay. We forgot to talk about Felicity involved in that because yeah, she showed up in one episode to basically say hi to Barry, I guess. I realized that when the Flash character when Barry I don't know why I say the Flash when Barry showed up in the backdoor pilot for the Flash show in Arrow,
Mhm.
I guess because obviously I never watched it, but I heard that there was an attraction between
Yeah,
Felicity and Barry,
yeah.
and then they played up on that in that episode of the Flash,
Mhm.
and
Well,
then basically, I guess, kind of shut the door on that to some degree.
uh, I think yeah, it's really shut. But yeah, I mean, when Maryline shows up in the Arrow show, he's there just. I mean, obviously they're sneaking the character in to start that whole process for his own show. But yeah, there's definitely some traction there. They're both like-minded, the same sort of thing. At the time, Oliver was a different. I mean, clearly Felicity likes Oliver, but he was a different kind of unattainable than he is now. And and so yeah, there was stuff there. She actually disappeared for a few shows because she spent after Barry gets hit with a lightning and whatnot. She's actually by his bedside for a long time while he's in the hospital, I guess. I mean, they have that in the plot and whatnot. So she's there and she has an interest in the guy, and that's why she shows up in the Flash show then. But I love Felicity. Felicity is one of my favorite characters in the show. She's awesome. I can watch a show of just Felicity. She's fun. They play around with the relationship between her and Oliver. They potentially go on a date. It doesn't necessarily work out. It's all part of probably the drama that you don't care for, in that Oliver doesn't really feel like, he wants all this other stuff, but how do you have all that other stuff and be the Arrow? I mean, the Arrow is kind of all consuming, and every time he's near somebody, of course, they're killed or threatened or whatever. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of those things. He's at a dinner. He's having a dinner date with her, and there's an attack on the place they're in, and he decides,
Of course.
this just doesn't work. Which, of course, yeah, no, like you said, you are like. I kind of liked it. I mean, I think they do a good job of the two of them acting that tension between the two of them. They do a good job of, because relationships come up an awful lot in the show, which may be too much. Anytime there's talk about that, she does a very good job of kind of seeming uncomfortable and cutting it off. I like her as an actress, the way she delivers her lines and the emotions around that. So I like the
So,
show. I think it's a fun show.
so one of the things that I've taken away from the podcast discussion that I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
and also if you learn nothing else from Tumblr, it's this: that everyone wants Felicity and Ollie to get together, and Felicity Smoke is an awesome girl. Which
Hmm.
I'm not making an argument for anything about that. That's all I know of Arrow for the most part. He killed a lot of people in the first season. The show got better, and Felicity and he should get together. That's pretty much the takeaway I have of Arrow right now. Plus, as you were talking there, Travis, describing the situation with Arrow, you remember when I think this has been played upon in the comics a little bit. Also in the Batman Brave and the Bold animated series, when Green Arrow would show up, there was one point in one episode where Batman says something to. No, I'm thinking of a comic. Batman basically turns to Ollie and says, "Is there nothing where you don't copy me?" Right? Because the
Uh, sure.
Arrowmobile, the Arrow
Right.
Cave,
Right.
trick arrows, all that stuff, right? A sidekick. It really seems to me, like I said, when you were talking there, describing the show, it seems to me like this is CW's Batman without Batman. Everything seems to be Batman-esque. It's just they're calling it Arrow, and he shoots arrows instead of throwing batarangs.
Hmm.
It's
To,
it's
to,
it's it's
certainly,
bizarre.
Certainly to a degree, it's definitely that. It's definitely that way. I mean, that's why I mentioned, that the comparison. Flash is this bright, cheery, and the Arrow is, the kind of Gotham-esque kind of thing, and it really is because it's almost all the action happens at night, and yeah, oh yeah, it definitely follows a lot of that. There's some other cool stuff in it though. They play around with Argus quite a bit. Amanda Waller's shown up multiple times. They've obviously flirted with the Suicide Squad in the show in the past. Now that they're not killing people, you can have recurring villains and stuff. So, Deadshot has shown up a few times. I like it. It's different than the Flash. It's definitely moodier as far as it being a dark and brooding as far as that goes, as opposed to Tyrion brooding. I like it. Like I said, it feels like it's developed. The show has developed. It actually feels like it's going somewhere, season to season, as far as the development of a superhero and that sort of thing. Like I said, the first season, clearly the guy is, a killer. He clearly is a killer in the first season. And there's consequences that come out of all of that. That lead him to decide that doesn't what he wants to be. The second season is a battle with his past, largely. I mean, he's dealing with the consequences of Slade, of Deathstroke. Their interaction with each other created a huge mess that finally comes to a header in season 2. That's what largely season 2 is. Season 3 seems to be he's cemented himself even more into the superhero mode. They go on patrols. He's got a few more trick arrows that he uses throughout the show and whatnot. He has a sidekick that that he does use to some degree. It's moving more and more to the standard superhero type trope as far as that goes. And I like it. Is it super television? No, but I like it.
Yeah. So based on what I know of the show from listening to other people talk about it, I know you like it. I know I've teased you about the quality of the show in the past,
Sure.
but
Sure.
all in good fun though. I've decided, and I'm recording the current season right now. So what I've decided to do is go back and pick up where I left off in the first season and try to get caught up as soon as possible. Although, considering how many new TV shows I'm watching that are comic book based, there are 4 of them right now.
And soon to be more.
Yeah, and soon to be more. I don't know how I'm going to do this. So, but I plan to pick up on Arrow again and discover for myself what you and others have been saying about the show. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool.
I think I just got to get through that first season, right?
Yeah. The first season's tough. I mean, I sat around and watched it mostly because it's a Green Arrow knockoff, and I'm a Green Arrow fan. So
right, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on. We talked about how Arrow is essentially Batman without Batman, but let's talk about a show that's about Batman without Batman.
Right.
And that's the show on Fox, Gotham. I've actually, Travis, I have recorded all of the episodes. I've only watched 2. Are you watching that show regularly?
Yes, I am.
Are you all caught up on it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. So you'll be doing a lot of the talking then. When this was first announced, I think you and I talked about this on a previous episode.
Probably.
Of the podcast. And so we were talking about specifically about, Batman can't show up. I think we agreed that we didn't want a whole lot of Bruce Wayne in it, that him as a child in it.
Well, I remember there being some conflict of they said that Bruce Wayne was going to be there, but we weren't sure how that was going to work out.
Oh, at that time, you're right. Yeah, but now obviously we know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our reaction to it at first. So now that I've seen a few. You've seen, how many episodes are out now?
I don't remember.
I want to say 8 or 9. That's the number. I don't know. Maybe less. I should look this up. I'll do that as you're talking. So I wasn't all that enthusiastic about the show, and then when it premiered and I hadn't watched it yet, I was listening to a lot of people. Like I said, I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of comic book based podcasts, and of course, people are talking about the show just like we are now. And so the reaction either went one of 2 ways. Either it's pretty good considering, or
burn it down.
It's horrible.
Hmm.
Or a variation of that is there are some things they like about it, and other things are just totally crappy.
Hmm.
Bruce Wayne's character being one of those things. Fish Mooney, which when I heard that Jada Pinkett Smith was going to be on the show, I almost didn't watch the show based on that alone, because I do not like that actress.
Oh.
I cannot stand her style of acting. But you know what? I actually enjoy her character on the show because her Pinkett's style fits with that over dramatic
Hmm.
quality that Fish Mooney brings to the show.
Hmm.
And well, I'll get to that in a minute. I was going to say something about feeling for the character, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So okay, so that's just kind of my going into the show. That's how I was feeling about it. So now that I've watched 2 episodes, it's not that bad, considering. I mean, there's a lot of problems with it. Uh, you know, like I said, I've only watched 2 episodes, so you'll have to speak about what's come after that. But the guy who plays Gordon is likable enough. Bullock is awesome. Even he falls into the over dramatic character bit too,
Hmm.
to some degree, but he brings a certain humor to the show
Right.
and his interaction with Gordon that makes it worthwhile.
Hmm.
Bruce Wayne is just, he's just there. I appreciate the brief examinations that they have of his character trying to better himself and test himself, because he clearly has a mission in mind. Whether if right now it may just be to find out who killed his parents. I think maybe I'm just I'm bringing a lot of baggage to this show,
Right.
based on the comics and whatnot, the history I have with the character. But I think that he's thinking even beyond that, or at least starting to, and that's okay. Alfred is an interesting take on the character. It's more like the depiction of the character that we saw in the Batman Earth One graphic novel by Jeff Johns.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and also kind of the way that the character was portrayed in Beware the Batman, that last animated series that was quickly canceled on the Cartoon Network.
Right.
But this Alfred is really brusque. I mean, he's
Well, it's interesting. In the first in the pilot, I'm like, whoa. I mean, he just kind of shows up. Bruce has just seen his parents murdered. He basically picks the kid up by his scuffs and goes, "We're walking out of here. Stand proud." Blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, whoa, where's compassionate Alfred at? This is crap. I like I like Alfred who can kick ass, but I also like Alfred who is this kind of compassionate, the equivalent of father, great guy. And I'm like, I'm instantly not liking this dude. My first thought was I watched that first part and they first show Alfred. I'm thinking, I don't like this show because I don't like Alfred. Alfred's a dick in this, But he's changed. He's not that way now. I mean,
Yeah.
since they've shown more and more of him, he is clearly concerned. You're getting much more of the compassionate end of the guy as opposed to that first introduction to him, though, the first exposure. It's like, this guy is
it was off-putting.
hard-boiled asshole. Like, I was like thinking, dude, the guy just, the kid just saw his parents both get executed and bleed out in the alley while he's standing there. What are you doing?
But you're still a Wayne. You're still a Wayne, Master Wayne.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh, that's horrible. So, but yeah, I'm glad they've kind of feels to me like since the pilot they've righted that ship, because that was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I was going to be able to tolerate it if they're going to keep showing Bruce Wayne and have Alfred be that way. I was going to be. So.
What do you think of the Batman villains to be? So we've been introduced to the Riddler so far. We've been introduced to the Penguin. Is there anybody else?
Falcone, obviously.
Falcone. Oh, Falcone. So, yeah, okay. So right now in Batman Eternal, Falcone, at least in the first part of that comic, he's played a significant role in the story, and of course he was a big character in the Batman Year One by Frank Miller.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, Falcone has been a typical Gotham mobster character. Take that as you will.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little over the top, but it's Gotham. Ooh,
right.
Come back to that. This is Gotham. That phrase. Okay. But I really like, I don't know who the actor is. I've seen him on other things, but I really like the actor's portrayal of Falcone in Gotham. I think that's a really interesting take on the character and adds a dimension to Gotham City that is really interesting, because there was that, I think it was the second episode, where he and Fish Mooney get together to talk business, and I think it was that first, maybe, I don't know, it doesn't matter which episode it was, but he's talking to, I think it's Fish Mooney, it may be somebody else, but he's talking about how there was a balance in Gotham City between the Falcone family and the Waynes, and now that the Waynes have been, I'm going to say it, Travis, whacked and stacked, uh, that balance is off, and he thinks that the balance needs to be there, which I just find interesting. So anyway, just a little character moment for this guy that really drew me in, more so than say some of the other more well-known. Oh, Catwoman. I mean, Cat, right? That's
Cat, yeah.
That character's there too. Than these other, the typical Batman villains like the Penguin and the Riddler.
Mm-hmm.
So I just really like that. I understand, based on a little bit that I've heard, that Penguin is going to be making his presence, or has made his presence known in the latest episode, even though everybody thinks he's dead. Yeah, that's what I hear. But he's setting himself up to basically take over, I guess, or I'm not sure of that. You'll have to expand on that. The Riddler is just kooky. The guy who's playing him is really playing up that whole psychotic, serial killer-esque angle of the Riddler. You know, it's bizarre. The fact that he works at the police department is an interesting take, but it's just like, why would they employ such a guy? But again, this is Gotham.
Gotham, right?
I swear to God, Travis.
That excuses everything, doesn't it?
I know. 2 episodes in, and I'm already sick of hearing people say this. But this is Gotham, Jim. Why aren't you beating up people and breaking the law and blah blah blah? Just because this is Gotham. This is how things are. And I realize that this happens in the comics too. I mean, that's a line that gets thrown in there as well. But it's just, I don't know. It seems so concentrated in the first 2 episodes of this show. It's like, oh my God, yes, I get it. It's Gotham.
Yeah, it's very in your face. It's very in your face, even more so. Whereas in the comics, it's almost as like an inside joke amongst against the crime fighters, whether that be the police or it be the superheroes. It's kind of like, it's almost like it's like a bad joke. It's like all this stuff happens because it's Gotham. It's kind of like. Mm-hmm. It's a thing you say because you're frustrated, whereas in the show, it's a thing you say as like, I don't know what, I'm not sure exactly how I'm supposed to take it in the TV show, but yeah, it gets delivered way too often. Mm-hmm. And there are aspects of the show I really like. I know some people don't like the ambience. I kind of like the ambience. To me, it's weird because it's like some things are delivered in kind of in an almost comic book camp kind of a delivery to it, yeah. and then some of it flirts with trying to be a regular like detective TV show or kind of thing, and I don't think the mix works. There's sometimes there's this abrupt clash there. I think that's probably the thing I would want to criticize most about the show, is that there's just this kind of thing that happens. I mean, and it's not that I don't like both aspects. I like both aspects, but they're not working together. They either need to do one or do the other, and because I feel like it's very disjointed, otherwise. Examples of that are like when they have like a TV reporter. They have this one character that keeps reoccurring. That's a TV character. Oh, no, I mean that's a newscaster that's on the scene, and the way she delivers her, it's very campy. To me, it almost feels tongue-in-cheek, like it's an expose kind of. I don't know. There's something about it. It has this feel that matches some of the other stuff in it. I don't know if you saw the episode with people collecting people for the doll maker.
Yes, I did see that one.
Okay, so those two bad guys, villains, whatever you want to call them, they both seemed weird, didn't they? I mean, not weird as in they're bad guys, but weird as in the way they delivered their lines. They were very like like
Yeah,
out of
stilted and
right.
they're odd people.
And I don't, and that's not the actors, because both the actors that played those people are good actors. Clearly, that's how they were supposed to be portraying those people. So they have that almost comic book kind of bad guy quality to them. And then you have other people walking around that are very smooth, very polished, and very more the detective. Barbara Gordon is more of she's the detective's wife from the detective TV show versus the comic book character. And so there's just these kind of clashes as far as it being a good TV show as far as that goes that to me kind of crash into each other, and I don't. That's a problem I have with it as far as that goes. But like I said, I like both aspects for what they are, but they don't. To me, they don't work together. Currently, I want to like punch Barbara Gordon in the gut a whole bunch. She has made some choices that I'm just like, how would you ever think that that was okay?
Are you talking about? Are you talking about? So I saw in one episode, Gordon is talking about how he wishes he could do some. He could put the press on. Oh, it was the dollmaker one. The kids.
Not even that. No, she does something far worse than that.
Oh, okay. So,
the last episode, she does some pretty dumbass stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of like the fact. I mean, it was stupid, obviously, for her the way that happened, but well, I guess in a sense. I mean, but how she, Gordon's like, well, I can't. I can't call the press and tell them about this, because it'll get me in trouble at my job. And she just picks up the phone and does it, because she's a citizen. She has this information and she calls it in.
I don't mind that.
I like that.
I don't mind that. It gives you a reason as to why, other than her being beautiful, why is Gordon in a relationship with her? I mean, it shows that she has some, other than she's hiding some stuff clearly, because nobody tells all their past to whoever. I mean, but I think it establishes that she's a good person and wants to be good, and that's why she's with Gordon, because Gordon's a good person who wants to do good. Great. But she just does some dumb stuff that I'm just like, are you kidding me? Anyway, but
so
the greatest character in the whole show is the Penguin. Cobblepot is over the top and absolutely awesome. I mean, yeah, he's scary because this Penguin has no issues with killing you for a sandwich, which makes him way more frightening than most of the time the Penguins build. I mean, there's some stories where they build a Penguin as being brutal, and there's other stories where the Penguin's this kind of tubby guy that has all this bird crap, and he goes whack 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 whack, and you think he's kind of dumb. But the Penguin can be a really cool character. I like the Penguin in this. I like the portrayal, the character. You got to get caught up because the Penguin is either crazy and doesn't realize exactly how tight of a tightrope he is walking, or he is absolutely brilliant and he is gonna, he is setting up to jerk everyone's chain ultimately down the road and become clearly the Penguin, the crime boss that he is in the comics. I don't know. It just to me is like this latest episode. The end of it, it was like, whoa.
Okay. Well, that gives me a motivation. But here's the reason I haven't watched more than a few episodes. I guess maybe I've watched 3. I don't know. I'm thinking that I've watched more than 2 because I thought the Dollmaker was the 3rd episode, but I don't remember. What was I gonna say?
Why haven't you watched it?
Oh yeah. Thank you. Because this is one of those shows where I'm watching with somebody else in the house, and so it's just finding time to sit down with them and watch the show. But yeah, it's funny how you talk about the two seemingly incompatible tones of the show, and it reminds me like it almost like the show is trying to be Nolan's Batman universe meshed with oh God, who's the director of those last few Batman films before Nolan? Schumacher. Yeah.
Right?
Like that over the top campy quality that Schumacher brought to those films and mesh it with Nolan's Batman, and it doesn't quite work.
Right.
But again, just like The Flash, this is a new show. This is the first few episodes. Well, for me, first few episodes. They're still developing that universe. They're still developing those characters.
Well, I think you need to go. The biggest mistake I think is, I mean, for me, when the first show hit, there was people who loved it, think it's great. And there's people, like I said, that I didn't hear anybody that was in between. It was either you loved it or it was the worst piece of shit that was ever put out, and it should be burnt down, and everybody on it should be killed, and should never touch anything. To me, you got to go in with the kind of, this is a whole new reality. Yes, you know the names of people, you got a sense of kind of what's there, but just they're obviously playing to some degree fast and loose with the whole early Bat mythos. It's not going to be Gotham Central. There were people who were like, you're up in arms because it's not Gotham Central. Clearly, it was never meant to be Gotham Central either. I mean, yes, that would be a cool show. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love those books. That would be awesome to see that. But I think it was pretty clear early on that that's not what it was going to be, and just kind of go with the flow. I mean, things have different influences. Clearly, if you look at this versus what we all think is the Batman timeline, which in the New 52 is kind of weird anyway, but the stuff doesn't match up, right? I mean, so if Bruce is a teenager, is that how old he is?
I don't know. I was thinking about that too. He seems like he's not 10, so he's probably 12, 13. That's kind of how I take it. So yeah.
Okay. So and you got to figure like the Falcone is how old?
Yeah.
He's in his 50s at least.
At least, yeah.
And you got the Penguin. Maybe the Penguin's a young man. Maybe he's in his early 20s. That still makes him 10, 15 years older than Batman. So if you start playing that time, and the Riddler, you start playing that timeline out, by the time Batman's in his prime and being Batman, these guys are old geezers. So, obviously that clearly doesn't work. They're trying to tell a different story. They don't care what the history of the Batman used to be. They're paying homage to it in some sense, by trying to create an ambiance and whatnot. But they're clearly interested in telling their own tales, spinning their own whatever. And I think we should just look at it as that and not try to pigeonhole it into the Batman universe and think it's got to fit this mold, because it's not going to. By the premise of it initially set up, it's not going to, because clearly Bruce and Gordon have interaction on the day that Bruce Wayne's parents are murdered. That's pretty well established throughout comics, right? But they don't have a lot of interaction, to the best of our knowledge, after that. It's not like they continue to bump into each other. Almost every episode of this show, he shows up at Bruce's place to kind of give him a, whatever. He feels he has a greater connection to Bruce than what it seems that he does in the comics. So, I don't know. I think it's cool as an alternate reality, whatever you want to call it, an Elseworld, if you need to use that term, for it just to be what it is. So.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. The fact that people look at the TV shows as some sort of, hold on, my dog is barking. Yeah, the whole. I'm just going to talk over it.
Sure.
The people that are out there thinking that the TV shows, the movies, have to somehow conform to what's been printed, I don't understand that. As you said, these are alternate versions of those stories, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
Well, I quite honestly, if I've already read the comic book, I don't know that I need to see
exactly
a reprint of it done someplace else.
Yeah, it needs to be its own thing. It needs to follow its own direction, and entertain us in a different fashion. Mm-hmm. Why not? I mean, we're so used to comics, especially superhero comics, telling or giving us alternate versions of histories anyway. I mean, the origin story of the Batman, as presented in 1939, definitely has very little to do. I mean, other than the major beats, definitely has very little to do with what we know now. I mean, they filled in those gaps. Originally, Batman's parents were killed, and then he went off and became the Batman. That's basically the origin story that we were shown. And over the years, they filled in those gaps. And over the years, they've changed those details. Uh-huh. Why can't the TV shows do something different? Like, I mean, especially for Gotham, where it's introducing us to the setting. Gotham City is such a huge part of what Batman is and who he is and why he does what he does. So now we're getting we're getting the filling in of that information, those details. So
Mhm.
what I think it's interesting and or potentially interesting. It's like I said, I'm only a little bit in, so but I'll take your word for it. That it gets really interesting, and so why give it a chance. Don't think that and it's the same comments I've been hearing about the movies that are coming up, about how certain movies or certain characters in these movies should be like this, or they should go with these storylines, and or they should conform to what's going on in the comics. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to do that. Let them build their own universe and entertain us in whatever fashion, or however the fashion takes us in regards to those stories.
Mhm.
So what do you think of I do know this about Gotham, the past relationship between Barbara and Detective Montoya,
Mhm.
which the reason I bring it up is because some people were like, that's stupid, or that's dumb, because those characters never had an interaction. Again, to go back to the how it has to conform to the comics.
Mhm. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, although that's not one of those things. The timeline gets really weird because Montoya. I mean, I'm not. So she's how much older than Batman? I don't know. I
Yeah.
always considered her a younger person, so that's weird. But I mean, it's cool to have those characters in there. Clearly the Spectre is walking around too, right?
Yeah, that's Montoya's partner, right?
Right.
Crispin.
Yeah.
What's his?
So
Yeah, I
Cypress or
can't
something like
remember.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so for me, that's like some of those kind of name drop Easter eggs kind of things. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, clearly the only reason they had a relationship is to derive a plot point. It's a
Hmm.
way. It's a way to create that whatever else that's there. I don't. It's not being used beyond that much. So yeah, whatever. I mean, to me, that doesn't bother me at all. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. They clearly you know, they decided that they weren't going to shy away from, Montoya's sexuality anyway. The fact that means
Hmm.
that you know Barbara's a little more adventurous or whatever than what people want to envision her as. I don't care. I mean, how much information for me, I guess, how much information and how hard and fast is Gordon's wife? I mean, how I don't know. To me, it doesn't strike me as is that there is this rock solid concrete a description of what she was or is for that to be a problem for me.
Hmm.
So
Well, that's my whole problem with Barbara to begin with, is that I don't know what she is besides Gordon's wife. So far, I've not been given enough. Well, okay, Gordon's wife, and she had a relationship with Montoya. She seems to be a good person, but what else is there to this character? I want.
there isn't anything. She lounges around
Really,
their
that's all they've shown so
their
far?
their, their awesome loft. She lounges around it, and I don't know. She's unemployed clearly or whatever.
But
She's
I thought she had something to do with some museum,
well, I
or
guess
did
they
I?
maybe mentioned something like that at some point that she
Yeah.
was, but I don't know. We've never seen that or anything. I
Okay,
don't know.
so that's my complaint. They need to develop her a little bit more. But again, this is the first season of the show. They need to develop all the characters a little bit more. So
Sure, sure.
okay, I'm enjoying it so far. Like I said, we'll see how it goes. I fully, like I said when we first started talking about the show, I fully anticipated that I would not be watching the show, and I'm surprised that I want to continue watching it at this point.
Yeah, for me, I was totally sour grapes on the thing until I started seeing the first actual ads for it, and then for whatever reason, they showed just the right clips of ambiance of it, and I was like, okay, I'm excited to see it, and I've watched it, and yeah, I mean, I can sit here and tear apart every show if I really wanted to, to make it not fun for myself, but there's enough there that I'm entertained by and like and whatnot that I'm like I said, I'm just keeping an open mind and enjoying the ride for what it is. I mean, there's clearly things about it that I mean, me and you have friends that absolutely hate the show, so and I guess if I really wanted to go in it and dislike it, I can find stuff to dislike about it. But I think there's lots of fun things in there too. So
Yeah, exactly. And I think you could say that about any of the shows we've talked about so
oh
far,
yeah, because
and
none
any of
of
the
them,
shows that we will
because like I
talk
said,
about.
none of them are like groundbreaking television.
Yeah.
that I would not put them up with a lot of other things I think are quality television, and they're they're not as far as that goes. But
Hmm.
they're fun entertainment for what a large chunk of what TV is, I think. So
And I will stop the conversation at this point. Please join us for the second part of the episode, in which we talk about a few other TV shows, as well as the run of movies from Marvel and DC up through the year 2020. As always, you can leave feedback by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com, or you can always leave comments at longboxreview.com. Thanks for listening.